Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ivanka and in this video we are starting on a tutorial for the folio that I've made with the Simple Stories, the Simple Life paper collection. My plan is to have the project share on my channel before we start on the tutorial, so hopefully that's on there, and I will try to put a link right there on top if you haven't seen it yet, so you know what we're making. I've prepared my pieces of chipboard. I prepared my piece of cardstock for the wrapping. I want to go over the wrapping of the cover, of making the cover rather quickly. I have several videos on my channel where I go a little bit more step by step, so I will also try to link one of those on top if you need a little bit more of a detailed instruction on that, because otherwise this is going to be a 40-minute video and we just made a cover. So I'm going to try to prevent that. So for measurements, I am going to share measurements. I'm going to do my best to call out the measurements. So you can you feel free to get a little notepad and write the measurements down, and then you can make it all along with me. Or you can go to my Etsy shop, and for a small amount you can find the cutting guide and everything is written out for you. In that way you support me and my channel. It's just a small amount. It's not like a whole tutorial because the videos are accessible, and it's not mandatory because like I said, I will share the measurements so you can write them down as well. Okay, so I want to get started. What I also am going to try for the first time today, I've bought it a while ago when they actually released it. It's not that old, but I feel that I have it in my stash for a few months. But I haven't used it yet. This is from Me Your Memory Keepers. I just got it out of the packaging. It's called a book cover guide, and I wanted to try it out if this is a nice and helpful tool. The first thing that I've noticed is that this part here that can be used for spacing out your chipboard pieces, I might find it a little bit on the small side, but I'm going to try it and I will let you know. So yeah, I'm going to try this one out today. So like I said, I've prepared my chipboard and my cardstock. I've got two pieces of cardstock to 10¼ inches in height and 12 inches in width. And on one of those pieces of cardstock, on the 10¼ inch side, I draw a line 1/2 inch from the cut edge. I like that as a guide. And then I've placed some 3/8 inch tape there. And we are going to connect these pieces of cardstock to make one long piece. So I, like 99% of the time, use the traditional wrapping method to make my covers. I prefer that over the, I think we call it the easy wrap method, where you wrap all your pieces in one go. But if you want to use that method, you absolutely can, but you have to keep in mind that your chipboard pieces end up a little closer together. So you might need to do some adjustment in your measurements to make sure that you have enough space for your folio. So I would increase my spines probably by 1/4 inch, and I might even consider to increase the width of your the large pieces, maybe 1/8 inch or something, to just make sure that you have enough space to put everything in the folio. So I'm gonna go all the way to the what is it? The left hand side of my piece, and I'm going to draw myself a line at 1 inch. Now I do know that I can also use this for it, like for example in your scoring board. You could place this in your scoring board and then place your pieces of cardstock, but because it's such a long piece, I don't think that would really work for me, but that's an option. So I just draw my lines, right? And that's just for a guide to get a straight start, so my pieces don't go off all the way. So, and I also do that on the bottom. So I will give you the order of the pieces in a second because I'm going to tape them up quickly. Okay, taped up. I'm like super distracted lately, but today even more than other days. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But okay, first piece of chipboard is going to be one of your large pieces that is 8 1/4 by 6 3/8 of an inch. That's the first piece that I'm going to place right here. So I went for a quick and easy solution with some sheets of the double-sided tape. So I can remove that all in one go. And I'm going to line up one of the corners with the intersection of the pencil lines that I've made. It's really hard to see, but for me it's pretty clear to see there. And I'm just going to find the most straight edge that I have on this piece of chipboard, and then I'm going to follow the pencil lines to place that first piece down. Now with the double-sided tape, when it's down, right? So there is no wiggle room. So you use your adhesive of your choice. That's the most important thing, I guess. So yeah, let's try this thingy. Can I get that in frame? Yeah, it's black on black. I know that's always a little difficult. I also have new studio lights, so I hope that gives me an improvement, but it's the first time that I'm using them, so it's also trial and error. So normally I like to use this tape, which is about 3/16 of an inch in width. It's cheap tape, but it's awesome for my covers, but it's definitely a little wider than this thing. Now I also don't like that it sticks out a whole bunch, so either on the bottom or on the top. So I'm not sure if I'm going to really enjoy using this, but I'm going to give it a try. So next piece is your piece that is 1 3/4. So 8 1/4 by 1 3/4 of an inch. And I overlap my tape here, so I need to be a little careful with removing it. And then my ruler. So that's a little bit out of frame because yeah, I can tell already I'm not liking this thing. I'm not using it not for determining the width, because I need a guide. So maybe on a smaller project it would be fine, but for now I don't like it. Not saying that it's a bad product, right? Don't get me wrong. Okay, so some spacing tape. What you can do if you want to make space and you don't have this tape, which I assume you don't have, 1/4 inch tape is your best choice. And then we are going to place that 1 3/4 inch piece along the bottom. So I'm going to use my ruler to line everything up, and I'm going to use my spacing tape there. And that's why I want to have it all the way to the bottom, so I can use that as a guide. Okay, I'm going to repeat this step with my spacing tape, and the next piece that we are going to place is our second large piece that is 8 1/4 by 6 3/8 of an inch. So I'm super distracted because I had some decisions to make. My daughter's birthday is tomorrow, so I had to do all the preparations for it. I'm almost set. So that was done, and then my daughter has been nagging me for quite a long time now that she wants a dog. She loves animals. She really loves animals, and her grandparents have a dog. And when we were in Europe over the, yeah, for me it's still over the summer, it was in June. Oh, she was so over the moon that she had that dog to spend some time with, and it was just amazing. So I was more and more getting into, maybe we should give her a dog. And my husband was like, no, we've been there, no dog. But the more that she kept asking for it, the more we kind of gave in. So in January I went looking for a good breeder for a cavoodle pup, or I think in the US it's more known as a cavapoo. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, But yeah, by accident we found a really good breeder that was also at that moment, or maybe like a few days after I found her, announcing that she was going to have a litter that was due on my daughter's birthday. So that kind of felt like it's meant to be, right? Okay, so after the big piece, I'm sorry, I did the piece that's 1 1/4 by 1 7/8 of an inch. And the last piece will be 8 1/4 by 2 1/4. So this one was 1 7/8 of an inch in width. This is going to be 2 1/4 inches in width. And what I want to do is I want to angle my edges. That's optional. I almost forgot, but that's what I wanted to do. So I'm going to get my angle punch from We Are Memory Keepers to just take off that corner. Now if you don't have that punch, you can still achieve that look. This is just quick and easy. But what you can do, you are going to measure from your corner 3/8 of an inch in both directions. So 3/8 of an inch. Also on this side, I'm gonna go, well, I can do one side only, right? So 3/8 of an inch, and then you also go down 3/8 of an inch. And you connect those marks, or you cut along along that line, and you will cut off that corner. So you can just mark it by using a measurement of 3/8 of an inch. But the punch is just quick and easy. So that will be the last piece that I'm placing down. So yeah, a puppy. Yeah, so I contacted the breeder, and she was, after exchanging some information, she thought that we would be a good fit for one of her upcoming puppies. So we got a place on her waiting list basically. And then last Wednesday, 2 days ago, the puppies were born. 8 young beautiful puppies. So it's getting a little real now that we are actually getting a puppy in, yeah, well, it's still gonna take some time, but so exciting, but it also makes me a little nervous. But no, super fun. But my daughter doesn't know it yet, and I'm waiting on telling her, because understanding time is still a little tricky for her. So if I'm telling her that, yeah, but it's going to take 2 months, she's gonna ask me every day, like, how long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? So not doing that. So right now I'm lining up the 1 inch grid line of my ruler with the end of this piece of chipboard to mark that on my cardstock. And that's where I'm going to cut my cardstock for 1 inch that I can use to wrap over on that chipboard piece. So I'm going to cut off on the line. There we go. And now I'm going to place some tape. Now let me see, this, I can use this here to cut off the edge, or I can mark it now. So normally I would use my own little thing that I've made out of chipboard pieces, but now I'm going to try this one. But I cannot do it on these corners because I've cut off that angle. That makes the wrapping over a little bit more tricky, but I did it before. I will figure it out. I have to figure it out. I don't know from the top of my head how exactly I'm going to do it yet. So I've marked it. I'm going to get some 1/4 inch tape, some 3/8 inch tape, because I like to do everything extra good. I'm going to place tape, 3/8 inch tape around the perimeter of my cardstock, and a 1/4 inch tape around the perimeter of the chipboard. So I'm going to do that quickly. I think that everybody will be fine with that step. But I'm going to make sure that I'm going to go over the pencil line that I've made for marking my miter later on. Okay, so once all the tape is on, make sure that I give it a good burnish. And with the 1/4 inch tape on the chipboard, I really put that in the gusset area. So I don't pull it all the way straight, I really place it in the gusset area. And okay, I can start with cutting off the corners there. So where I made my pencil line earlier with the miter tool, I can now cut on that pencil line And my scissor is super sticky, so it's a little difficult to work with. Need to clean it. And then on this side, I need to figure that out. So if you didn't do that little angle in your corner, you're fine. You can just do the same thing as we did right here. But here, you have to bear with me a little bit. I've tried to figure it out and I've come to a certain point. But what I did is I draw a pencil line 1/8 of an inch under my chipboard piece. And I'm going to cut up to that line, to that corner. So that's a little, I'm going to try to show you that up close. But I have the corner here of where the angle starts, and I'm going to cut with an angle up to the pencil line that I've made, 1/8 of an inch away from the chipboard. So like that. So we can fold this flap over on the bottom. And I did the same thing on the short side. So I'm just doing one corner for now, and then hopefully once I figure it out exactly, I can share my information a little bit more clear on the second corner. So I'm basically, what I want to do is I want to cut a triangle out. So up to that corner, I'm also going to come in from the other side. And I can also, maybe I need to do that straight. So let's start straight so I can always correct that if I am wrong. So basically this is what I'm doing now. And now we need something to wrap over here as well. So I did it 1 inch from the edge of that angle, but that's a little bit, that's quite a lot. So maybe we can get away with like 5/8 of an inch. Let's try that. So I mark 5/8 of an inch from the angle. And I'm going to cut there on that line. Yeah, so we can cut this in a triangle as well. So I'm gonna get my scissors to open up. And I think what we can do is actually cut on that line. Okay, yep. Okay, I've got it, guys. I've got it. I'll tell you on the second one what we're gonna do. So, second corner. This is how it works when you come up with something. You need to figure out how you can make it work, right? So I don't have all the answers on the top of my head either. So I'm going to line up, which is really hard to see for myself as well, not just for you, but also for me, the grid of the chipboard, the edge of the chipboard with my 1/8 inch grid on my ruler. And I need to get my head in frame because that's tricky. And I just feel that my spine pieces are just a hair longer than the other pieces, so I didn't do a really good job on cutting, but I'll make it work. So I draw my line 1/8 of an inch, and I do the same thing. It's pretty far out. That's okay. Same thing here on the side, 1/8 of an inch from the edge of my chipboard. And make sure that my pencil lines intersect. So then what I'm going to do, what I did on the first corner as well, I'm going to cut with an angle up to that pencil line that I've just made. And I want to end up where the angle starts. So we can mark that with our pencil where that angle starts. I don't know how well you can see that, but I've made a little mark. And I'm going to cut with an angle up to that mark. So do that from both sides again. So up to that angle, up to that little intersection with an angle, also from this side. And then I can cut on the pencil line towards where the intersection where I've just cut to as well. So we create like this little triangle piece there. So I'm going to cut on the pencil line here. So we cut that piece off, and then also here. And then we need to put some glue or some tape on there to make sure that that really gets a good stick later on. Okay, so prepared that. So I guess it is going to be a little bit of a longer video on making a cover, but I always want to do it a little quicker, but for some reason I can't. I just take time on making my projects, and I guess that means that my videos are also a little longer. So with an embossing tool, I'm going to go around the chipboard now, all the way around, to break down the fibers in the cardstock. Okay, and then once I've done all that, I'm going to pre-fold it onto my work surface. So these are all steps to break down fibers in the cardstock to prevent any cracking. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to start on the long sides. And I'm kind of thinking like, do I want to do this first? But I think I want to do the long side first. So removing my tape backing, I'm also going to add some wet glue on the cardstock up against the chipboard edge. All of those things are really personal preferences. You go however you like to go on that. So a little bit of wet glue. And then I'm going to start wrapping it over. But, so, yeah, a puppy is coming. I will keep you updated. It's going to take time. Like I said, they've just been born. So, we have a lot of time to get prepared and get excited about it. And then another thing that I've decided on, but it was a difficult decision. But I decided to start, how do you call that? Like an educational course. It's not like a full-time bachelor or something. It's just a course to get back into the working field, because I'm going to do the opposite long side now. So I've always been working when we were in the Netherlands, and as an ICU nurse, and later on in education. And when we moved to Canada, I became a full-time mom, taking care of my kids, and that was a really hard change for me. So that's why I started Scrapping Coffee, basically to keep myself busy. And that got a little bit more out of hand than I thought it would at forehand, but that's not a complaint. So that's all been good, but I've been missing working life, also for social contact, for several reasons, right? And my children are getting a little older, and I really want to get back into the working life, actually. And but I don't want to give up Scrapping Coffee, right? I want to keep going with that as well. I don't want to go back being a nurse, because the working hours, my body does not cooperate with working during the night and all of that. And now having children, I just don't want to go there anymore. So I've been thinking for a longer time now about a career change in the educational path. So that's what I want to do. And I've decided to start a course on that. So I'm going to fold in my little overhanging of cardstock here. But yeah, that was a hard decision for me, because I know that's going to influence how much time I have for this. We also just decided on having a puppy, so it was like, is this the right time? Yeah, so it was a hard decision, but I think it would be good for me on a personal level. So that will, yeah, influence a little bit on my channel. But then on the other hand, I feel that I haven't been consistent, and in like the last year basically, and I'm having a really hard time getting back to that consistent level of uploading for several reasons. It's not that I don't want to, but it's just I struggle in finding the time, etc. So that was the easy side done. So if you need a little bit more detailed information on what I did on the corners, I suggest you watch the video that I linked earlier on. And I didn't do this really neatly, but yeah, I'm gonna hide it later on. So right now I'm going to do that small little piece here first. So we need to fold it in and make it flat. Now if I feel that I have a little bit too much overhang, I might cut it off. Oh, darn it, that got stuck already. So I don't want it to fold in too much, because then it's going to not cover my corner completely. Let's do one first. This is a little bit of trying and see what works. I don't mind getting gluey fingers, so that's, I'm just using my fingers to fold this in, and I will deal with this part in a second. So I don't want this to fold in too much, and I will use my bone folder to make it all nice and straight if I need to. So I'm using just wet glue on there. So don't be too aggressive with folding in your overlap of your overhang of cardstock there. Just slightly fold it in. Now I messed up there a little bit, but that will be fine as well. I want to fold this in slightly here. And use some wet glue. But yeah, that will start pretty quick, in 2 weeks time, and it's just a course. It's like, it's not really, well, it's going to take up some of my time, but during the course I will still be able to continue with all of that I'm doing here on my channel. But after that, yeah, it's a big question mark. It depends on what I'm going to do. I'm not aiming for like a full-time job, like 40 hours a week, because I also still want to be there for my kids. But yeah, I don't know what the future will hold, because my actual goal, what I actually will have been looking at, is to do the bachelor to become a teacher in primary school. But I think that's a little bit too much for me at the moment to go through something like that. So maybe that's, so I'm deciding on taking a step in between, get some work experience in, and see if I want to go through the effort of doing a full bachelor. But sometimes you have to make decisions in life, and the only thing what I really don't want is to stop with this, so I will do everything in my power to keep going. Okay, so I am burnishing the cardstock into my gusset areas right now. But that's distracting me quite a lot at the moment. All of those things, a lot happening. My own birthday is coming up. Well, I don't really celebrate my birthday that much, but okay. And then this is our cover. The inside, I was a little worried, but eventually it turned out pretty well. But I do advise you to take your time on this. Don't go too quick. Don't fold it in too far, and use your bone folder if something is sticking out, to just make it to your liking. On this side it looks perfect. I don't know how well you can see it, but that looks pretty good to me. And that's the most important part, right? So what I want to do next is place some cardstock here on the inside to cover up our spines. We're going to build it as a folio on the larger pieces. So we want to cover this up, and we will cover this up with our elements later on. I'm not 100% sure about this part, but right here I do know it. So let's start with cutting a piece of cardstock to go here. So now our cover is 8 1/4. So I'm going to cut a piece 8 1/8 of an inch in height by, I think, let's do 5 5/8 of an inch. Can I get away with 5 1/2, because that measures easier? Yep. Okay, so I have that piece and I'm going to put some tape around the perimeter on the back of this. That's what I prefer to do. You can use any adhesive that you like to use. Oh wait, well, leave this on. I need to give this a good coverage. So I'm going to get some larger tape for that. That's what I mean. My head is, I'm not in a clear, I'm not able to think clearly, but here we go. I got that on time. My blade. So you want to give this a good coverage with tape. If you don't have larger tapes, I will show you what your important places are for tape placement in order to prevent that you get like air under your cardstock and that you have that nasty sound when you open and close your album, the buckling of air basically. Giving it a good burnish. So if you don't have large tape or you don't want to cover it completely, I do advise you on covering it as best as you can. But the most important part is to go around the perimeter of your piece of cardstock and place your tape along the edges of your chipboard, so next to the gusset. So you would place a strip of double-sided tape right there and maybe fill in that a little bit, but you just don't want air traveling around your paper. That's you're not going to be happy with that. So I have my angles here, so I'm going to also angle it in my cardstock. And with that said, I'm going to start placing it here at the edge, lining it up at the edge. Normally I would start at the spine, but I want this to be nicely lined up, so I'm going to start at the edge. So that's where I'm going to remove my tape backing. I have the blade open there, let's not do it. And what I like to do to give myself some wiggle time is to add a little bit of wet glue on top of my double-sided tape, so I have time to lift it up if I need to. Doesn't have to be much, just a little bit. And I'm going to place that carefully because this doesn't want to lay flat. Now I work a little bit better on this side, so I'm going to turn my piece upside down. And I'm going to stay away about 1/16 of an inch from my chipboard edge, or my cover edge basically, and I try to line up my angles there. And of course try to have my piece straight. So turning it back again, my project will always turn in all the different directions just in order to give me the possibility to work where I want to work. And then I'm going to remove the second part of tape backing. I am going to burnish up to my first gusset. Then I'm going to meet. Then I'm going to change bone folders and I'm going to push the cardstock in that gusset. Lift this up. And now with doing this, you have a little bit of a chance of your cardstock going off. So that's why I normally like to start on the spine, but this time I really wanted this to line up. So while I'm burnishing, I'm really lifting up this gusset here. And now I can continue burnishing on here, on the spine part. And then I need to remove my last piece of tape backing here. And again, I'm going to burnish up to the gusset and push the piece of cardstock in the gusset before I stick it down here on that large part. And again, I'm going to lift up the cover while I do that. I think you get a little bit better look at what I'm doing from this side. I'm really pushing it in. And then that piece of cardstock is really coming up, and that's what you want, because that means that the cardstock is really going in that gusset. And now from the gusset I'm going to burnish it on that large part. Okay, so that's the first one. we need to do the same thing right here. So for that I'm going to cut a piece 8 1/8 of an inch by, let's do, I think 4.5 would be nice. So again, a good coverage with tape. Same rules apply basically. So again, I need those larger pieces to make it a little quicker. Okay, so we got that one covered as well. So again, if you don't have large tapes or you don't want to use as much, please do the critical areas. Right here I can start on the spine. So what I will do is I'm going to leave on one of these tape backings. Yeah, that would be fine, I guess. And again, I'm going to do a little bit of wet glue, more for the wiggle time that I can lift it up if I want to. Oh, there we go. And here we're going to try to center it on the spine, have even space on top and bottom. Drop it on the spine. Now I still have tape backing on here on one side, so here my tape backing is removed, and I'm going to push it in the gusset area there. And that's where the wet glue also comes in handy. It doesn't really stick on the cover. It will still lift up when I'm doing this. So we don't stress out that cardstock too much. And then I'm going to burnish it on that larger part there. Then I will remove my tape backing here. Now again, if you're using that other method for your cover, this might work differently, right? I don't have that much experience with making those covers, but yeah, you might need to do something different here to cover those spines. Just keep that in mind. So I don't have any wet glue on here, so I want to be a little bit careful with how much it sticks on my cover there. And lifting it up while I'm pushing it in there to really get it in there. And the fact that I've used tape as spacing between my chipboard pieces helps as well with sticking that down. But we also have the tape on this piece of cardstock, right? So that is covered. Okay, so we have those pieces on. Now the one thing that I always check is how well is my cardstock sticking just in the fold. So sometimes it gets loose a little bit there, and sometimes at this moment I think, oh, it's all fine, and then later on I notice that it's loose a little bit. So I really try to give those areas a really good burnish. And once we start using this cover, opening it up, closing it, opening it up, it will break down the fibers even more and it will get less stiff. So we have this. Now what I want to do is place some magnets to keep this closed. So I'm going to get my magnets, and I'm going to do, if I still have it, I hope I have it, 2 sets of large magnets. Okay, that's basically all I have from my large magnets. So I need to do an order. I'm waiting on a paper collection to be available, so I can order it all in one go. So for these magnets, I think there are 2 different brands. So let's, does it really matter? I don't think it really matters. Okay, first 2 magnets. Oh, I've got some small paper clips on here. I'm going to place on the lid of the cover. So I'm going to determine where I want them. And I don't want them too close to the edge, not too close to the gusset. So I'm going to basically center that on the lid, and then a little bit more to the outside. Something like that. So I'm going to draw where that magnet is going to go on my cardstock. And I will do the same thing with this one. Then I'm going to get a craft knife and I'm going to cut that out. Well, not completely. I'm going to remove some layers. In the meantime, I'm searching for a craft knife. Here it is. So I will be going over this circle that I've just drawn that marks my magnet. Don't push too hard. I want to remove the cardstock and I want to remove a couple of layers of my chipboard. If it's not a neat circle, don't worry. We're not going to see it. We're going to cover it up with pattern paper. And on purpose I did my cardstock first and then the magnet, because it makes it really easy to remove a few layers of your chipboard because you just pull that away with your tape. But it's also like if I would do my magnet first and then the cardstock on top, that would be a barrier layer between my two magnets and reduces the strength of the magnet. So I want to try to keep that to a minimum. So I have my black cardstock now and I will cover it up with pattern paper. If I would do the magnet first, I would have the magnet and then a layer of my black cardstock on top and then a layer of the pattern paper on top, on two sides. So you have 4 layers of paper in between. That reduces the strength of your magnet. Now I only have 2 layers of pattern paper in between my magnets, if that makes sense. So that reduces that problem a little bit. Okay, so this was enough for me. So basically by just cutting it slightly and pulling on the cardstock, I removed a few layers of chipboard, and that was enough for me to have it sunken in here where it is leveled or almost leveled with my chipboard. So you don't have that obvious magnet lying on top of your chipboard that's really visible through your pattern paper. And then I'm going to make sure that that's going to stay in place. Now if you want to, because these don't have any adhesive on the back, and I'm often just a little too lazy to actually do it, but you can place a little bit of double-sided tape on here and then stick it in there. And then for extra security I would still do a piece of tape over it. Okay, so those are the first 2 magnets. Then, now it's going to be the tricky part. For me, that is the tricky part. I'm going to drop my second magnet on here. Now this is a different brand, but they work together, so that's all good. I'm going to, again, cut a piece of tape and with the sticky side facing me, drop the magnet on top of the first magnet. And one more. Okay, and then we are going to close our cover, get something close by that we can use to make sure that our tape is going to stick on our cover. So I have just, this is always a tricky part, to make the magnet stick now where we want it. So make sure that everything is standing up nice and straight. I'm going to fold over this flap. And I'm going to try to push on where I think that the tape is. So this is my first try. And slide it off. And it worked. This hardly ever happens to me. I always have to do this in 300 goes. But this is now in place. And I'm going to mark where the magnet is. And try to carefully peel that off. And then I'm going to make a decent circle, because I'm terrible at cutting circles, so I need a decent circle there. And I will do, I've already marked that one, right? So I can carefully, and I will do the same thing that I just did on the other side, where I'm going to remove a layer so that I can sink in the magnet. And then before I'm placing the magnet in, I need to make sure that it's in the right way, that it really makes contact with the other one, right? And doesn't work against each other. Okay, so drop them on there and get a small piece of tape. That I just place on top now. So I do that on both magnets. And cutting tape like this, that's what makes my scissors so sticky. So I try to remove the tape backing, and then I know that I need to place it with the tape backing down in this part here. And then cover that again with some tape for extra security. Just making sure that everything has a good stick. And give it a try. There we go, it stays closed. Nice. So our cover is done. Yeah, I guess I'm going to make this a separate video, like the first video for this project. So in the next video we're going to start working on our folio. That's going to be on this side. Yeah, there are gonna be some fun elements in there, but yeah, probably you've already seen it. So that will be in the next video. This is the cover for the folio. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to see you in the next one. I hope you join me there. So enjoy the rest of your day, and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.